Welcome to My Morning Cup, a podcast produced by Costa Media Advisors and brought to you by the generous support of the Tennessee Valley Authority. To learn more about TVA's impact on our community, follow TVA on Instagram at TVA and on Twitter X at TVA News. My Morning Cup, where we have interesting conversations with genuine people. I'm Mike Costa, your host. My guest this week is Lynn Chesnutt, Executive Director of the Tennessee Small Business Development Center. Lynn is the emerging entrepreneur's best friend. Lynn, before we get into what you're better at, improving your golf handicap or picking smooth bourbons, let me ask, what's in your morning cup?
Mike, generally it's medium roast black. I will occasionally indulge and have a iced latte with maybe some caramel, whatever. But now it's just one cup.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I used to be 3 or 4 cups, but no, I can't do that anymore.
Caffeine get to you?
A little too much caffeine, and those that know me know that I don't need too much caffeine.
You ever tried decaf?
No.
I'm a decaf guy.
That's like drinking non-alcoholic beer. I'm sorry, I can't do it.
I got to tell you, I can't taste the difference.
There you go.
I cannot taste the difference in caffeinated coffee or decaffeinated coffee, but after 3 or 4, I could tell you which one's which.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just like the taste and the ritual. And I know you get in early so you can visit some of the local coffee shops, don't you?
Absolutely. Doing what I do, talking to people in the community at these local places. I have a bunch of meetings at coffee shops, and we have some great local coffee shops.
Well, and that was one of the reasons I want to ask you that, because I want to talk about the Tennessee Small Business Development Center, but I do want to start with your story first.
Sure.
But your job really is connecting people and ideas and with other people that can help them out.
A lot of it is connection. While we serve as sort of a third party, we're going to tell them things their family and friends are willing to tell them. It's being a cheerleader. It's being, how do I connect you to a good CPA, a good attorney? You need a contract, whatever it may be, or just those steps of, should I be an LLC? Should I be a sole proprietor? All the little things that people just were not taught,
right?
Unless you're like an entrepreneurship student.
You're able to do what a guy early in my career when I was selling forklifts and really enjoying myself. He had a saying, and you're able to do that with your clients, which is there ain't no easy way to tell a woman she's got an ugly baby. You got an ugly baby. Yeah,
exactly. And I will tell you a quick story that we were interviewing somebody. And one of the people that were doing the interviewing said, "What do you do when you tell somebody something won't work?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "How do you know it won't work?"
Yeah.
I don't tell people things won't work. I may say, here are your challenges.
Yeah.
Here are your obstacles. Here are the things that may make it prohibitively hard, or you may not be able to do it. Or maybe you can't do it now, but here are some of the steps you may need to take so that at some point in time you can do it.
I find that interesting because early on I met with you before I really got out on my own, and you didn't tell me it wouldn't work, but you said all those other things and I never paid attention.
Well, you're not the first person who hasn't paid attention. And again, advice, it's hard to take sometimes.
Yeah.
You have a passion about what you want to do.
Well, and you want to hear what you want to hear.
Well, you do. But, I told a husband and wife one time, they were in business together. And I said, number one, I don't know how you do that. How can you be married to somebody and be in business with them? That's hard. But the wife said something, and I said something back, and she smiled. And I said, what? And she goes, I know he's wanted to tell me that. And I said, yeah, but you can't make me sleep on the couch.
Well put. Well, let's talk about you, Lynn. So you were born and raised in Cleveland, huh?
I was born and raised in Cleveland, Tennessee, and it was sort of a Mayberry type city or little town at that time.
Much smaller than that.
We had maybe 10,000 people.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, and this will tell you how old I am. I was born in 1959, so I've been alive in 8 decades. That's, I don't know whether that's something to be proud of or go, oh my God.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
Because you're not 80.
No, I'm exactly. Thank God.
Yeah.
But no, I grew up, for those that know Cleveland, I grew up on Ocoee Street, which was the main street in Cleveland, right above Lee College, not Lee University. It was Lee College. Very tiny little Pentecostal college. And I had, I would say normal childhood. I had lots of friends around the neighborhood. We'd go ride bicycles. We'd play baseball. We'd do all the things. And you could ride anywhere. One of my favorite things to do when I got old enough, and I was getting an allowance, I'd vacuum the house. I'd mow the yard. I'd collect my money. And then every couple of Saturdays, I'd ride my bicycle downtown to a little place called The Spot.
Oh, yeah.
The Spot had 10 stools, a little narrow thing, and you had one guy cooking and one guy taking the orders. And they had a Frosty machine. This was before Wendy's. Mm-hmm. And even when Wendy's came out, it was nowhere near as good as theirs. And I'd get a cheeseburger and a Frosty, and I'd go a half a block down, and I'd go to the matinee at the theater. And that was,
it's a perfect Saturday.
A perfect Saturday.
Now, siblings?
Nope.
No siblings?
Only child. And that probably, I tell people, that probably explains a lot about me. But yes. And the reason I'm an only child, my mom is the oldest of 10.
Wow.
She raised a bunch of brothers and sisters. Yeah. When I was born, she looked at my father and said, there he is. That's all you're getting.
Well, you know what? I understand that. I'm one of 7, and I've got 2 daughters. Yeah, and I'm in the middle, and I didn't raise my siblings by any means. But when you get in a crowded house,
yes,
you can understand that. My wife's mother is one of 8, mm-hmm. and she only had one. Similar type thing.
I think my mom was just tired, you know. But I had friends around me, and I still have some of them to this day that were a little bit like siblings because we were all together all the time. So I think it gave me some of those experiences. But yeah, only child, probably pretty hard-headed.
You mentioned the chores you did for the allowance. So only child, you probably had a pretty good list that you had to get done.
I did. And then again, it was mainly vacuuming, dusting, helping my mom with those things, and then mowing a yard. We rented from an elderly couple. The gentleman was such a great guy. He'd been a colonel in the Army, and he was just this stoic, great guy. But I mean, they were older, and so instead of hiring somebody, they paid me, and I mowed, and they had a compost pile because his wife loved to plant. Mm-hmm. So I would take the bag, and I would empty the bag into the compost and then I'd rake leaves in the fall.
You remember how much you were earning a week?
Oh, it was, I don't know, maybe $1. Yeah. I mean, it was nothing.
Just something to get you on your bike and ride down to the spot and get your cheeseburger and a Frosty.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, what did things cost then? So, if I had $5, I could spend a day. It was easy. I had money left over.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Also, one of the things you told me, and I want to talk a little bit more about, your grandfather was a big influence on you, huh?
My grandfather was my hero.
Yeah.
Okay. I think everybody probably has a hero or somebody they really looked up to. So my grandfather Chesnutt, his name was Jess.
So this is on your dad's side.
Yeah. So I learned later in life what a character my grandfather was. I saw my grandfather as my grandfather. But when he was younger, he was a baseball player, a very good one.
Really?
He was a pitcher. He threw a 4-fingered knuckleball. And even in his 60s and 70s, he could throw me a baseball and make it dance. That thing was just crazy. So he played at Bradley High School. He graduated, but apparently he decided, even though he graduated, he was going to still try to play baseball there.
At the high school?
They got away with it for 3 years, to finally a manager of one of the opposing teams said, I've seen this guy for 7 years. What's going on? And then the administration went in and said, Jess, you can't play high school baseball at 21 years old.
So he was pushing your record of not just being alive in 8 decades, but playing baseball in 8 decades.
Yeah,
High school baseball in 8 decades.
Exactly. So he's a big baseball player, but his claim to fame was he was the first full-time fireman Cleveland, Tennessee ever had, 1928. And it had been all volunteer. Well, the town was growing, and they needed to have somebody there all the time. So he was that first guy. And my grandmother and grandfather lived in an apartment above the fire hall and city hall, which was all in one building.
Really? Did they have a pole?
In the corner of the living room, they had a fire pole. And they had these 2 doors that went up and down that you open. So when I got old enough, what was Lynn doing?
He was on that pole, man.
I'm sliding down that pole. And then I learned, hey, I can shimmy up this pole.
Wow.
So I'm going down. I'm shimmying up. I'm playing on the fire trucks. I'm doing all these things.
You had to be in heaven.
Oh, it was wonderful. And in those days, and Mike, obviously I'm a little bit older than you, but we're the same generation. Yeah. Firemen, policemen, people like that, they were our heroes. Yeah. Because they were kind of larger than life. Mm-hmm. My grandfather was only 5'10", but he seemed larger than life to me.
Yeah.
But what was most important about my grandfather that I wanted to mention was there are people who teach you life lessons. And he would always use it as a teaching moment, something that would happen or go on. And one that was most important to me was we're going downtown, we're walking around the corner, going into a shop. He's probably going to buy me some candy because that's what grandparents do.
Going to spoil you.
Got to spoil a grandkid. And I start to open the door and he said, hey, Lynn, let's open the door for the lady. I turned, there was a lady standing there. So I opened the door. She went in, she thanked me. He said, come here. He said, do you know why we do that? I just shrugged. He said, your mother is the most important person in your life because she brought you into this world. You should honor her or her memory by how you treat a lady. You need to open their door. You need to pull out their chair. You need to help them with their coat. Mm-hmm. If you're walking down the street, you walk between them and the traffic. And I know these are old school things and there's people that think differently, but I will tell you, I've got some wonderful, wonderful female friends who are successful, independent, and they love it when a guy opens their door and shows some respect to them.
That's a great explanation for it because we are in a different time. And when those were just expected behaviors, a lot of people just kind of took them for granted, but your explanation brings it into, I don't want to say the modern world, but in today's terms that, you know what, to a great degree, I'm doing this for myself because I'm honoring my mother.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was brought up to do these things, but it's not telling you that you're not independent, you can't do this or whatever the slight may be.
Exactly. And he explained things like that to me. It was the why.
Yeah.
The why. Why am I doing these things? And this was the why for me. And to your point, again, as I say, I know some very, very independent women. And it's not that the woman can't do these things because they can. Women can do everything men can. Honestly, I think women are smarter than men.
Oh, I'll tell you right now they are.
I believe they are. But it is, again, it's just an honor thing. It's something to show respect.
Yeah.
And so there were a lot of those moments that I had with my grandfather. And I will say when my grandfather died, I was in college. That probably was the hardest loss of my life, even to date.
Well, you not only lost a grandfather, it sounds like you lost a friend.
Very much.
Yeah.
Very much.
When you were a kid hanging out with your grandfather, what would would you hang out with him every day? I know you had a bunch of friends, or
Sure.
Was there a special day or special things that you all would do?
Well, during the summer, my parents both worked, so I would stay with my grandmother. Well, the apartment was right upstairs.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm down there. I'm climbing on poles. I'm doing everything. I got home. My mother would just be livid because I was nasty climbing on all that stuff. I looked terrible. But we would walk to, there was a little restaurant around the corner. It was right across from the jail. And we go over there and we'd get lunch or we get an ice cream or we'd do whatever. And it was just spending time. He had a Dalmatian. You always think of fireman, right? You think of Dalmatian. He had a Dalmatian named Sparky. And Sparky really, he would walk around with me. Wherever I was going, he was going, because he was kind of watching out for me. Here's this kid running around. And so we do that. So it was just, I don't know. It was kind of magical to me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it sounds like you had an idyllic childhood, small town, running around with your friends, get on your bike, ride all day. You're not home until the sun's going down, and you got to be there for dinner. You got grandparents living close by who grandpa has that cool hero job that you want to be around.
It was. And I mentioned baseball because another thing, and I wanted to mention this one because we always get these life lessons when we least expect them. So I played baseball, and we started t-ball first. And but at 8 years old, you went to baseball. Well, back in those days, because we were in a small town, you played in the same league from 8 years old to 12. Now, I want you to think for a minute, Mike. You're 8 years old. I'm short, red-headed, freckled, and my last name's Chesnutt. Now, there's a case to picking on somebody. But
you were like a neon sign.
Oh, I was. It was like, come pick on me. But I'm trying to bat against 11 and 12-year-olds. Yeah. I was terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I was terrible. I couldn't hit anything. The first 2 years I was on this team, we went 1-27. We stunk. And our coach was just the nicest guy, but he just wanted us to have fun.
Yeah.
Well, I learned after a while, it wasn't fun anymore.
It's more fun to win.
Losing sucks. Yeah. I'm sorry. Losing just sucks. So my third year when I was 10, he got a guy come help him. His name was Cliff Swafford. Coach Swafford said, I'm going to teach you guys fundamentals. Oh, my gosh.
What are those?
Yeah. So I'm in the outfield, and he's like, hit your cutoff man. The guy hits it, and he's going to first. You throw the ball to second. Well, just the things that seem to be
the basics.
But we hadn't been taught the basics.
Right.
So we get almost halfway through the season, and we're playing 500 ball.
Wow.
Well, Lynn still isn't hitting crap.
Yeah.
So we have my moment where I got put in the game. Everybody has to play. That was the rule.
Yeah.
And that's a good rule. So I get in the game. In the bottom of the fifth inning, we get the bases loaded, 2 outs, and guess who's up to the plate?
The guy who can't hit.
I'm standing there. Now, I can hear the parents in the stands moaning.
Oh, God.
I'm hearing...
Pinch hitter.
Yeah. I'm looking at my friends and my teammates in the dugout, and they're getting their gloves ready.
Yeah.
Because
you're going back out in the field.
So I'm in the on deck circle. Coach Schwapper comes, kneels down, he goes, 2 things. It's okay. He goes, you're due. And I believe in you. You're due. I want you to do me 1 favor. It's okay. He said, this guy has been taught to throw a strike with his first pitch. He's going to take something off of it. He's going to throw it straight down the middle. That's the pitch you need to be hitting. I don't care if he throws in the dirt or whatever. I want you to swing. I will not be mad at you unless you don't swing. Okay. So I get up. Even the pitcher's grinning because he knows me. So I dig in. He crews one straight down the middle. I think my eyes were closed. I'm just going to be honest with you. I made contact. I sent one between the right and center fielder all the way to the fence. I'm running. I don't hear anything. I'm running. Result of the play, I'm standing on third base with a base emptying triple.
You got to love that.
They're in the stands, jumping up and down, cheering me. My teammates are cheering me. Third base coach is high-fiving me, and I went, oh, I like this. Yeah. This is cool.
This is fun now.
This is fun. But what it most taught me was you can do things. Mm-hmm. I can do things. If I try And I have somebody like Coach Swafford who said, I believe in you and you can do this. And I think that's been with me the rest of my life. There's always been somebody in my ear going, Lynn, you can do this. Sometimes it's me.
Well, and particularly with the business you're in now with the Tennessee Small Business Development Center, so many people who go out on their own. The thing that, and it's personal opinion, the thing that gets you is not your lack of skill or your lack of a good idea. It's lack of confidence.
Sure.
I mean, I think the biggest struggle for an entrepreneur is self-doubt and constant and consistent self-doubt.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of times for us, it's, look, you've got this. Yeah. We've got people who, they get paralysis by analysis. And I'm like, okay, you've done the work. You got to decide, are you going to launch or not?
Right.
It's time.
Yeah. So many people are afraid of making the wrong decision.
Well, we're all afraid of failure.
Yeah.
But in baseball, I failed a bunch.
Yeah.
And last part of that story was last 2 years, we go 10-4 and 13-1, and I made All-Stars 2 years in a row.
There you go. Well, and to your point on you fail a lot in baseball, what other thing can you do that you fail 70% of the time and you'd be in the Hall of Fame?
Exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You're batting over 300. You're an all-star.
Yeah. I got to tell you real quick on my baseball career, very similar to you. I couldn't hit to save my life. I think 1 year I batted 0.00.
Yeah.
I was also a catcher.
Yeah.
And my method of catching was to wait till the ball stopped rolling at the backstop, and then I'd go back and pick it up and throw it back to the pitcher.
Yeah.
Because I was not very good.
It just, there's little things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were some of the jobs you had in high school that started you with your work ethic?
So I actually only had one job before I graduated high school. My grandfather, when he retired, he had a side job where he was refilling fire extinguishers. And his biggest contract was with the city school system. And these were old fire extinguishers which were required to be refilled every year because they had in them water, baking soda, and sulfuric acid. It was a weird combination. So every summer, he would pay me X amount for every fire extinguisher we refilled.
Would you have to refill them because they'd lose their oomph,
Yes.
for lack of better description?
The acid, after a while, would get old, and they realized over time, and it became a regulation that you just couldn't get, after about a year, that was the life of the ingredient. So you had, and these fire extinguishers, to activate them, you turned them upside down.
I remember. Yeah.
And you would squirt them. Well, if that acid doesn't activate with the soda,
Nothing else.
you got nothing.
So would that be like when you see on these online videos of putting the Mentos in the Coke bottles?
Well, the cool part was my grandfather was not going to let me deal with the acid.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to do that to me. So my job was, I had this little thin container, and I would put X amount of soda in the bottom, and then I would fill the water up to, there was a line inside. So I would do that, and then I would, once he put the acid in, I would tighten them back up. Mm-hmm. And so I would do that, and he got to the point where he couldn't drive. Well, when I got my driver's license, I was driving him, and we do these things. So it was still time with my hero, my grandfather, but he was teaching me, there'd be days I'd be like, haven't we done enough today? And he's like, nope, we've got to have all these done by a certain date, and we're going to go do these things. Yeah. So I was taught you have deadlines, and this is what you do.
So you did that all through high school, and you went to Cleveland. You're a Blue Raider, right?
Yeah,
you went to Cleveland.
Blue Raider, Cleveland High School. Cleveland High School started in 1966. I graduated in 1977. So we lived in the city. So yeah, I went to Cleveland High School. I want to mention real quickly, you have those things in your life that are just amazing to you. Mm-hmm. So when I quit baseball, I started playing in the band. Well, a lot of places, you're in a band, you're a nerd, you're a geek, whatever. Mm-hmm. Cleveland High School had an amazing music program. My junior year, we were marching somewhere between 310 and 320 people.
That's a big band.
Huge. Out of a school between 1,000 and 1,100.
Wow.
So we take a trip. This is 1976, the bicentennial.
Yeah.
We take a bicentennial trip. We march in a parade, Cherry Blossom Festival, Winchester, Virginia. And then we go to Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and D.C. So we're seeing all these things I'd never seen during the bicentennial. So we get back. This is in April. Well, the vice president's office was in charge of festivities for the bicentennial. So the story goes, the vice president, his wife, and an aide were watching the Cherry Blossom Festival parade. And here we come, 310 people in red, white, and blue uniforms playing Stars and Stripes Forever. We were chosen over the Pride of the Southland band from UT to represent Tennessee in the bicentennial parade in D.C.
Oh, you got to love that.
So I was there. We marched. There's a picture I've got on my phone of us marching down Pennsylvania Avenue away from the Capitol. You see the Capitol and you see us marching.
What'd you play?
Trumpet.
You still play?
No. I played all the way through from 6th grade. I actually played into college because I not only played band, I played in a jazz band. And we covered Duke Ellington, Count Basie, all the way everything up to the early Chicago Transit Authority stuff. So played that, loved it, enjoyed it. But because of that, I could take some amazing trips, and I got to be at that moment standing on the mall at the Reflection Pond watching the fireworks on July 4th, 1976.
So all this has grown up in small town America. It's very storybook. You got your high school going and doing this. You get out of high school, what do you do to top that?
Well, so I went to Cleveland State, started there. Mm-hmm. I had switched and started playing tennis and got pretty good at tennis. So I ended up making the tennis team at Cleveland State. And pretty normal, couple years, knew a lot of the people. The thing I like about community colleges are they're kind of a step up from high school, but it's not that, 30,000, 40,000 people, UT, Georgia, all these things. It's sort of the 13th and 14th grade almost.
Yeah.
And it prepares you because I needed that. I was average student, my attention span was not the greatest in the world. So I was just, doing whatever. So I think it really helped me going there.
Well, we'll talk about that a little bit more because now Tennessee has the program where you can attend community college.
Yeah. Tennessee Promise.
Yeah, the Tennessee Promise.
Yeah.
And why that's so important for folks who may not want to think college is for them or may not be ready for college.
Yeah.
Or may not even want to go to college, but you still need some kind of certificate or degree.
Sure.
For your skills.
Well, and I know you've interviewed Rebecca Ashford, who has a wonderful story.
Bo Drake, too.
Yeah, I'm Bo. Well, Bo's my boss.
Yeah.
Because we are attached to Chattanooga State. But I think what it does, I went in at let's just say the urging of my father. We'll leave it at that. But I needed
My father urged me to do a few things.
Yeah.
Probably the same way.
Yeah. But I pre-law for one semester. And my advisor sat down with me and he goes, Lynn, I'm not buying this. And I go, good, because I'm not either. He said, yeah, I'll bet your dad. I said, yep. He said, how about we just go to kind of undeclared, and let's get our basic curriculum out of the way. So that's one of the things I think is wonderful about community college. Let's get our basic core courses out of the way in a smaller environment where it's not so big that you're not getting some encouragement. Nothing against the big universities, but you're just a number. You may be in a class of 150 people.
Well, and you can knock out some requirements that may be the flunk out classes in a bigger environment where they put you in a lecture hall of 100 people, they don't care whether you come to class or not.
No.
They cover stuff you can't understand.
No, they don't take attendance for those things. You're either there or you're not there, and you turn things in. But so that was really good for me, and it also, my advisor, and his name was Jerome Taylor, and Jerome was really great. He said, "What do you like?" And I said, "Well, my mom works for a bank. I love being around the bank." And he goes, "Well, let's take some electives, and let's make sure your electives like accounting."
Yeah.
So I started taking those. And I'm like, I got it. I'm sitting there with people around me, and they're going, "I don't understand this." I go, "Well, it's this, this, and this." So I realized that the math side of things, the finance side of things, were how my brain worked.
Now, you mentioned your dad, that he wanted you to be an attorney.
Yep.
Why did he want you to be an attorney? Was he an attorney?
No, he wanted to be an attorney. No, he worked for the U.S. Postal Service 33 years. And my mom stayed at home with me till I got to second grade, and then she went to work for a savings and loan. You'll remember that.
Oh,
for
yeah.
some people, and they're hearing this, they don't know what a savings and loan is because they're gone.
Hey, we had a financial crisis for it, so we should all remember it.
Absolutely. So no, I think he always thought that was the career that was going to, make me successful.
Something he held out there with high esteem, and
he was living vicariously through me. No offense to him, but I mean, he was doing that.
As most parents do.
Yeah, and I wanted nothing of it.
Yeah,
I'm an only child. I mean, don't tell me I have to do something because I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And so, and fortunately, I had that advisor who was that independent third party.
Yeah,
just like what I do now, who said, "Well, let's just ease into this path."
Was there any pushback when you decided, no, I don't want to be an attorney and I'm going to pursue banking? Was your dad? I know you're in community college at that point, but was there any pushback?
Oh yeah,
yeah,
oh yeah. I mean, my dad wanted what he wanted. Mm-hmm. Loved my dad. My dad provided. My father and mother paid for my college. I didn't have to get a student loan.
So you're debt free.
I'm debt free. Now, what I did do, and when I got out of high school, 2 days after I graduated, I went to work for Sears in Cleveland, and then worked for them all the way through college because
doing what?
I started taking out packages for people and heavy stuff, and would help some of the department heads, and then. When I moved to Chattanooga, because I went to UTC, and we can talk about that, I moved to Northgate, Sears, which of course is not there anymore, and I went into the men's department. I was selling men's clothes. And one thing I learned, and I obviously did not learn this from my father because he would walk out wearing something totally mismatched. I learned how to match colors.
Well, I was going to say that explains your sartorial splendor that you come in with every day.
Yeah, I love to wear bright colors. I like to do all these things. I wear weird socks. All the stuff that, and I learned that there was a lady there, an older lady, who would blend colors that you didn't think about. And I would look at her and I'd say, "Does that match?" She said, "How's it look to you?" And I go, "I like it." And she goes, "Then it matches."
There you go.
So community college was great for me.
Yeah.
I then transferred to UTC.
So you get through all your prerequisites at community college. You decide finance and banking is the way I want to go.
So it was business administration was the major, and then I did a minor in finance. And so I made sure I had those things. I learned the marketing part and some of the other things, but hardcore was the finance side.
So you come down, you go to UTC, you major in business administration with a focus on finance. Where does all this take you?
So I get out of school, and the savings and loan my mom worked for, president of the bank called me in, said, "What do you want to do?" So I want to work in banking. He said, "Okay, I'm going to put you to work, but you're going to start at the bottom, and you're going to learn the ropes." So I started making $12,000 a year. I thought it was great. I was a single guy all this other stuff. Boom. Stuck on they put me on the teller line. The first Friday I was there, I'm working the drive-through teller window on a Friday afternoon, and there wasn't any direct deposit or anything like that.
Everyone's cashing their checks.
Everybody's cashing and depositing checks. We finally closed the window at 6:25. We closed at 6, but Cleveland's a manufacturing town.
Yeah.
So everybody got paid on a Friday.
And they all got off at the same time.
Yeah, 3:30, 4 o'clock. Yeah. And so they were out into the street.
Yeah.
And I closed, and one of the other tellers helped me. I was like $100 off, and she helped me find it pretty quickly. I went home, ate a sandwich, and went to bed. It was exhausting. I went, this is what banking is?
Well, you bring up a great memory, though, because before, obviously, the internet, before direct deposit, it was Katie bar the door to the bank. I got to get my check to the bank. And if you didn't have a bank account, you had to find the bank that the check was written on to get it cashed. And you're right. It could be anywhere between a 5-minute and a 30-minute wait just to get up to the teller to cash your check.
So you have to remember, this is a time when ATMs were first coming into play.
That was about 76.
And you didn't have a debit card. You had an ATM card.
Mm-hmm.
All you could do is get money. And so it was a very different world, but it was a great opportunity for me. I was in Cleveland. We had a branch in Athens. I got moved to Athens to help them out. We then opened a third location in Cleveland. Myself and 2 people helped open it. And then I'd met a girl when I was at Sears, and we started dating again, and we decided to get married. And so I moved to Chattanooga, and we had a branch on 153 across in Northgate.
What's the name of it?
It's called Cherokee Valley. And it was Cherokee Valley Savings and Loan, and then became Cherokee Valley Bank. They did make the switch and survived all of that S&L crisis. And then got married. Wonderful lady. But I got married for all the wrong reasons. I got married because everybody else was married.
It was the next thing on your list.
That was what you did.
Yeah.
You had a checklist.
How old were you?
22.
Yeah, that's about right. You're out of school. I've done these things, and now I got to.
Yeah. But I was way too young to be married.
Yeah.
Man, it was at John Cougar Mellencamp said, men aren't worth a damn till they're 40. And sometimes I got friends that are older than that aren't.
Yeah.
But, but no, I wasn't. But she's a lovely person. Mm-hmm. She ended up being a teacher, and then ended up being a principal. And she actually got featured by Reader's Digest some years later after we had divorced.
Nice.
Wonderful person. It just wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't meant to be.
How long were you married?
6 years. In the meantime, I made $12,000. I was getting a $500 a year raise. I wasn't making any money. Guy comes to me and says, "Hey, you want to make some more money?" And
of course I do.
Yeah. You want to be in finance? Yeah. Okay. Well, come to work with us at this finance company. I didn't even know what a finance company was. But they were going to pay me $18,500 a year.
Yeah.
More time off, better benefits, because it was a national company. It's called Credit Thrift of America. It's gone through several iterations since. So I go to work for them. I walk in the first day, and they hand me this little binder. This is how, when somebody calls or they come in to apply for a loan, here's how you quote payments. I look over to the right, and the annual percentage rates are there.
Yeah.
On a $2,500 loan for 24 months, the APR was 30%. And I looked at my boss. Her name was Carol. And I said, "Carol, nobody's going to borrow money for this." She goes, "Come with me." And we walked up. And again, everything was done on a card. There were still no computers to speak of. Mounds of cards of people borrowing money because they had credit issues or other things that were going on, but they had life.
There's a market for it.
There was.
Yeah,
there was a market for it. And so, it took me a little bit to to go, okay, now when I started at Cherokee Valley, mortgages were 16%.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how bad, prime went to 20 at that time. So rates were high. So it wasn't like I was going from 5 or 6% to 30, but still that was quite a thing. And we were making loans, we were collecting the loans, and we were repossessing those who didn't pay. So I'm repossessing cars.
Wow. How long did you do this job?
86 till 91, and 92.
What was your takeaway from it? What did that teach you? What do you walk away from knowing?
Couple things. And I'll probably get in trouble for this one, but that's okay. I've gotten in trouble before. There's a market for things. There's a need.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be careful when you regulate certain things, because people who need money. Okay? But it also helped me understand how much lack of knowledge and education there is when it comes to finance, even to this day. And I think it's worse.
I think it's worse too. Yeah.
Because when you look at the credit card debt we have now in this country, it's crippling.
Yeah.
And I've had people go, well, these finance companies, this. I said, I never put a gun to anybody's head to borrow money. It's on the person. I'm sorry. You have to be responsible for yourself. I've made a ton of mistakes in my life. And what's it, Dave Ramsey calls it, stupid tax?
Yeah. I want to get to the Tennessee Small Business Development Center part of your career, and if you would touch on your first Tennessee years, but also you're a 5-time cancer survivor. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure. One of the hardest things in my life, but one of the things I'm most proud of. I'm working. I got out of banking for a little bit. And the only good thing that happened out of that is I met the mom of my 2 children, Heather, wonderful lady. We're still very close to this day. We were married 20 years, wonderful person. And we'd gotten married in less than a year after we got married. She'd had 1 surgery and I had 2 surgeries. And I had cancer and I had melanoma. And a lot of people think, okay, this came from the sun. Mine did not come from the sun. I had a predisposition for moles and other things. Well, mine were growing from in outward. And so I've got a couple of big bites out of my left leg that look like shark bites where there are skin grafts. But I had this surgeon, and Heather hated this guy at first because he had no personality. Well, I don't care.
Yeah, no bedside manner.
No bedside manner. His name is Coleman Arnold. I mentioned his name because if it weren't for Coleman Arnold, I wouldn't be here today. I had several surgeries in a row, about 3 within a couple-year period. Then I didn't have me for a little bit. Then I had a spot on my aorta. So he couldn't do that surgery, and I needed a thoracic surgeon. So they went in and did that. And the reason I mentioned that surgery, it was benign. It was a granuloma. But they either caught a nerve ending of my vocal cords, or they damaged the vocal cords by intubating me, because it's hard to intubate me. And this is why I sound like Guido Corleone. I'll make you an offer you can't refuse, right? So I've always sounded this way. And my children don't know any other voice, And only the people that have known me 30, 40 years know that voice. My last surgery, I passed out in my front yard. I went to the doctor. They took some blood. A normal hemoglobin level is 12 and above. I was 4.5. I was getting ready to stroke out.
Yeah.
And so what do? They give me a blood transfusion, and I call my old friend Coleman Arnold, and I have a tumor attached to my small intestines and colon.
Jeez, Lynn.
So After the surgery, I find out that I now have 8 inches less of a small intestine, 4 inches less of a colon. But he reconnected me, and he told my family, and Heather always told me I knew you were going to be okay because he walked out. He said, it was far worse than I thought. There were little nodules everywhere. He said, but I got it all.
Wow.
And I'm in my 25th year of being cancer-free. Now, I never had radiation, chemotherapy, interleukin, any treatments. It was just surgery.
The surgery just take
because melanoma doesn't always react well. So, great surgeon, wonderful family. But I will tell you, those last couple, I was at First Tennessee. And I want to mention, which is now First Horizon, and I know you've interviewed Jay Dale, great guy. That was such a good company to support me. Mm-hmm. The local president came to visit me. Other people from there visited me. Jim Williams was the guy's name, and Jim said, Lynn, you worry about you. And he took Heather out in the hallway, and he said, you call whatever you need.
Wow.
You take care of your husband. When he's ready to come back, he comes back. We got it taken care of. Now, can everybody say that about where they work?
No.
No. They cared.
Yeah.
You know, they've gotten all kinds of words about being family friendly. They've earned it.
Yeah, that's a good one. Absolutely a good one. I want to talk about TSBDC before we run out of time.
Yeah.
So how did you get to TSBDC, and talk a little bit about what TSBDC does?
Sure. So when I was in the banking world, a lot of it in Cleveland, I would send people. I met a guy named Rick Platts, who was the director in Cleveland, over at Cleveland State. And I realized what he did. And I thought, hey, he can help some of my clients be better prepared. Or, hey, they need a business plan or whatever. I can't do that for them. I'm their lender. I would send them to him. Frankly, I'd sent some people to him in hopes he would all but talk them out of going into business. I did that a few times, and I'm their banker. I can't say that or they're going to get mad and go down the street, right?
Yeah.
So I believed in what they did early on. When I left banking in early 2013, the director in Cleveland said, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. I'm at a point, I don't know. First time in my life, I didn't know. He said, well, come work with me a little bit. So I worked in a contract position with the TSBDC in Cleveland, and then got talked into going back into the corporate world with Alan Jones and checking to cash for a few years with some friends of mine that I knew and loved my time there. Alan's a great guy. I really enjoyed working with him. But September of 2015, I get a call from the director, TSBDC in Cleveland. He goes, hey, director in Chattanooga is retiring. You ought to think about it. Well, my other option was there were some supervisory positions at checking to cash, but I was going to have to travel.
Yeah.
Well, I'm divorced. I have a autistic son, nonverbal, and I have an elderly mom, and I'm an only child. So travel.
Not realistic.
Not realistic. So I posted, didn't hear anything for a while, and then I got interviewed. It's the only interview where I've had that many people interview. I had 12 people in the interview.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, there were 12 of them. Now, but here's the thing, and this goes back to the whole idea of, baseball, and now I can do this. I had a job.
Yeah.
I could go do whatever. So I came into it with...
You had nothing to lose.
I had nothing to lose. And so I'm leaning forward. I'm looking at people. They're throwing me questions, and I'm just shooting questions back or answers back at them. And those 12 people, plus my experience for 2 years working for the network, they weighed in on it, so we know him. And basically the CFO over at Chattanooga State, Tammy Swinson, times says, I love the fact that we got a guy that understands finance, because we are funded this way. They got to understand it. Mm-hmm. And so I was offered the job. It started January of 2016. And the reason I like it is this. We help people. You have an idea, you have a business, how do we help you get where you need to go?
Related to that,
Sure.
someone's starting a business. What's the most common mistake you see of someone who's starting a business? Is it not having a plan? Is it?
That's a big one. The other one is I've got to start this business right now because before anybody else does it, because they're going to steal my idea.
So sense of urgency.
There are no new ideas.
Yeah.
Sorry. There are very, 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 very few.
Do people over worry they're going to steal my idea? Because I tend to think that's the case.
Oh, I think they do. I mean, we were at the beginning of this, we talked about coffee.
Yeah.
How many coffee shops are in Chattanooga?
3 or 4.
Yeah, like, right, on this block.
Yeah.
You know what? Somebody else is selling coffee. Do it better.
Yeah.
Do it different.
Yeah.
But it is. It's planning. It's understanding what you truly need to do to make yourself successful. And it's also be willing to be coached for the things you don't know.
I think that's a big one. Particularly if you're starting with your idea and you're coming out of a successful career and you've got an idea for a business, I think that ability to be coached gets shut down. Your ears clog up,
It does. And understanding that small businesses rarely charge enough for their product or service on the front end because they think nobody will give them that much money. And, we have small businesses who've been in business 3 or 4 years, and I go, what's your cost of goods sold? And they can't give you an accurate number to what it is. If you're the cheapest, then people are going to see you as cheap. Mm-hmm. So be willing to price your product. We're driving and lining up in drive-thrus to pay $7 and $8 for a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
We'll buy stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
If it's good quality as a society.
Just have to see the value in it.
Yeah. One of the other things, and this is a pet peeve of mine, and we have in our network and across the city and across the country. The second day I was on the job, I looked at our marketing and I eradicated the word free from everything.
Yeah.
Free is the worst 4-letter word in the English language. Because guess what? Somebody has to pay for it.
Right.
We're funded through Congress, through the SBA budget, and then the generous matching from Chat State, people like Rebecca Ashford, who firmly believes in our program and has been wonderful, her and Bo Drake, Robert Dooley, and UTC, especially the College of Business, Charles Wood, who you, of course, interviewed. Charles was I think he was my first coffee meeting.
Was he?
And this is before Chris started Big Caffeinated. And we sat and talked, and he said, we want to help you. We're in the incubator building as a in-kind donation from the chamber. Mm-hmm. So guess what? Do we charge an entrepreneur to come in and talk to us? No. But somebody's paying for it. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing free. There aren't a bunch of grants out there to help you start your business from the government. It doesn't work that way. You've got to plan. And also, the other thing I tell people is you got to be willing to invest everything.
Yeah, you got to be all in.
Why should somebody else help you if you're not going to be fully invested yourself?
Burn the boats, be all in.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite economic acronyms, TANG-STAFL. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch. No, at all.
Again, that's where, unfortunately, because they're always use the joke. I say, well, look, I know everything on the internet's true, right? But you see all these things. Here's a grant. Send me $39.95 and I'll send you this book about. And I'm like, send me the money.
Yeah.
I still got 2 kids. They're grown, but they're still coming to me for money.
And they always will.
And they always will. I threatened to move and not leave a forwarding address.
Oh, they'll find you.
Oh, I know.
I've tried that.
They will. But I tell people you've got to be willing, look, find the resources. Also, be willing the things that you don't do well. If you're not a good bookkeeper, get a bookkeeper.
How can people, speaking of being in touch, how can people get in touch with you?
Sure. The best way is to go to tsbdc.org and you can request counseling. You'll get an email, and we can get you into the process immediately. People don't realize we have 1,000 centers around the country in all 50 states and U.S. territories. We're a large organization with tons and tons of resources to help people. And the best entrepreneurs in the world have gotten help along the way.
And it's full of institutional knowledge like yours.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Before I get to my last question, Lynn, I do need to remind our listeners who makes all this possible. And it's a huge thank you to the Tennessee Valley Authority for sponsoring My Morning Cup. You can follow TVA on social media to learn more about the multifaceted mission of service, and visit TVA.com/do-good-here to explore exciting TVA career opportunities. All right. I know you've been thinking about this one because it's my standard last question. What would you tell that 25-year-old Lynn Chesnutt is important for a happy life?
Well, obviously I know this because I listen to all your podcasts. If you say you can't, you won't. Instead say, I haven't yet. And then build a plan on how you can.
That's positive reinforcement, that inner positive talk, because you're a big golfer.
Yep.
And you know, sports and business equate a lot. And I'm very guilty of this on the golf course, which is negative talk. If I did that much negative talk in my business, I would never get anything done.
No.
Yeah.
I'm playing the best golf of my life at 65 years old. Shot my lowest score at 64 years old. I shot 74. My golf partner I've known 50 years, and we pump each other up. We don't play against each other. We want each other to do well.
Yeah.
And so now, and that's why I picked that.
Yeah. And that's true in business and life. You know, if you're constantly negative on yourself, it's going to have a negative outcome.
If you are negative, that's negative things are going to happen.
Absolutely. Well, this was very positive. I'm glad we finally were able to sit down and do this. I always enjoy spending time with you.
Absolutely, Mike. I appreciate it. Again, you've had some wonderful guests, and I'm glad you included me in the group, and I'll see you on the golf course.
Well, I sure hope so. And I won't be negative. I'll pump you up. Good to see you, Lynn.
You too.
Thanks for listening to My Morning Cup, a podcast by Costa Media Advisors. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend. I release a new episode each week, so be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.